although it's an upfront investment, the ability to exist in people's mind after the fact is priceless, you know? And people that would have never discovered my music, or at least not in that way, now they're going home from the festival because they got my merch and they're streaming my Spotify and they're looking out for future merch drops and that type of stuff.
What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. Today's episode guest is part of a full circle moment, as it often is, because this industry is very small, as we all know. You first heard mention of my guest, Drew Dapps, on Mikey Lyon's episode. Mikey was shouting out Camp Dappington, a very unique experience you're about to learn about, and how showing up and offering value to events can put you in the front of the line for getting booked. That's what we were talking about with Mikey Lyon. Zooming out, what you're going to learn from today's episode is that you don't need to have 1 million followers to start creating offshoots of your brand. Things like activations, merch, all of those things that can bring you in money when your music alone is not yet. That's what we're talking about on today's episode with boutique house music artist Drew Dapps. I'm super excited for you guys to learn something today. I'm super excited that we could finally chat.
Yeah, for real. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you. Big fan of the show. It's an honor.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And you were mentioned on this show before you've been on the show yourself. Mikey Lyon brought you up, which I thought was very cool.
Oh, for real. That was super touching. Shout out to Mikey.
There's an act named Drew Dapps. Really awesome, minimal tech producer, minimal house guy. I ended up having him play a set at Desert Hearts during the opening party just because he fucking blew me away with his tenacity and
commitment.
Yeah.
That definitely made my day to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to get into Camp Dappington, but before that, let's back up. Talk to me about who you are. I saw in your marketing materials, you call yourself a boutique house artist. So I'm very curious to know what that means.
Yo, thank you for asking. So yeah, I feel like people put the term out there like underground, up and coming. And, I am those things, but at the same time, it's like, not only am I up and coming, but my sound is rare. And I feel like not only is the sound rare, but it's suitable to be in a boutique shop, like at a fashion show. That minimal house sound is great for a shopping experience or combined with the fashion context. You know what I'm saying? So rather than being just up and coming, I like to also be boutique and kind of be selective about where I'm doing shows, where I'm doing releases, kind of just elevate the brand in a special kind of way. You feel me?
Okay. So it was a branding decision, which I suspected, but I think that's really interesting that you've picked fashion and boutique stores as kind of part of your brand. And I know that you have merch too, which we'll get into. But what I'm most interested in, there's a lot of artists that listen to this show who feel like either they only want to work on music and nothing else, or they feel stressed about having to do other things. And you're in this whole other lane where you've got festival experiences, you have merch. So can you tell me why you made that decision to spread yourself across a lot of creative mediums when most artists aren't doing that yet at a similar stage?
Yeah, for sure. That's another good question. So, what's dope about the current state of the music industry is it's never been more accessible to create music and get it out there, which is totally awesome. So for that reason, I feel like we're definitely in a creative renaissance and it's a good time to be an artist. But on the other side of the coin, it's there's so many people out here cooking up music and DJing, doing that type of stuff. So how can you diversify? Like, how can you be different in a saturated market? And like you said, a lot of people are just so focused on the music. They think like they don't have time or it's not worth it to try other things. But on the real, if you doing other things, that's what's going to help you to stand out and get noticed in the market. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the artists that I bring on this show do have that one thing. I mean, Gosh Father always comes to mind when we're talking about this because, you know, of the unique ways that he makes content and how he's like dominating threads. So picking a lane and using it as like a conductor or a platform to also uplift your music is a really smart marketing decision. And I always encourage the Patreon students I have to make it something that already integrates with your daily life. Like, so if you know, are a surfer, like find a way to incorporate surf in your music. If if you like fashion, whatever it is, because that's going to make it less of an arduous lift, right? Because it's something you're already doing.
Yeah, totally. And that's how I feel about skateboarding. It's something that I grew up doing. Like literally one of my first memories ever is skating to my first day of school with my big brother. So it's like something that's always been a part of my life. And I try to incorporate that into everything I do. Like for instance, you know how they're on Spotify, they got the canvas videos that go along with the tracks. Well, if you peep any of my songs on Spotify, it's all just skate clips from times I was skating at the skate park with the homies. And I actually kind of did a 2-for-1 thing with that because when I drop music or a DJ mix, I like to also put out a skate video. And that's like a unique way to do some marketing behind it. And not only that, it's like affordable because going to the skate park is free and I'll just go skate with the homie. They'll get some clips for me. So not only will I roll out like a skate edit, meaning like a little montage with the music behind it, whether it be my track or some homies that I'm supporting in a DJ mix, but I'll also chop up those clips and have it be on my Spotify. So if you scrolling through any of my tunes, you'll see just clips of me skating. And that's not only a way to stand out, but it's just a way to be consistent with something too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you tell me, because there's still a lot of people who don't, they don't necessarily buy into like, the power of this type of marketing and having a through line in your brand. Can you point to any ways that taking on this strategy has directly led to opportunities or successes for you?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, yeah, we had talked a little bit about Camp Dappington in the beginning. So for the people that don't know, that's a theme camp that I set up a few years ago. The first time I ever did it was at the afternoon Umbrella Weekend, which is a festival that goes down in SoCal. But they actually invited me to do a theme camp just because I had this thing going for my brand called Camp Dappington, which when I first started it up, it wasn't actually anything real. It was just something in my imagination just to exist as a piece of merch. Like I had some patches inspired by a Boy Scout patch. And I also had like some t-shirts that say Camp Dappington. And since I had this imaginary thing going, they asked me, Drew, since you're going to be playing the festival anyways, would you be interested in setting up a Camp Dappington theme camp? And I'm like, yo, I have no idea what I'm going to do, but say less, I'm about it. So I had this dilemma where I got to put on a theme camp, but I really don't know what the theme is going to be. And after giving it some thought for a while, I'm like, man, there's only one thing to do, and that's to set up a fingerboard skate park. Because along with growing up skateboarding, I grew up fingerboarding. And if you don't know about fingerboarding, it's like those little tech decks that used to be huge, like in the early 2000s. There's like when it got a lot of attention, but the scene in fingerboarding is still huge today. If anything, I say it's growing. But I just thought, yo, if I was at a festival, I would definitely be hyped if I saw that there was a fingerboard skate park to shred. So that's kind of what birthed the whole theme behind the theme camp. And bro, like you said, it's definitely led to some opportunities. Like for instance, there was a festival that hit me up called Applecross, and they like my music and stuff, but where they really heard about me and why they wanted to book me, a big reason was because of the Camp Dappington theme camp. They saw how hard it went at another festival and how much people were enjoying themselves and how it was a highlight for a lot of the attendees at another festival. So that's why they wanted to book me. And I ended up being like pretty much the only house artist on the lineup. But since they really liked the fingerboard skate camp, they wanted to put me on.
Oh my God. Well, first I have to say, I forgot that fingerboarding existed until you and I connected. And then somehow yesterday, the universe put me in front of a German DJ from Berlin that was in Chicago for a fingerboarding conference.
Yo, who was that?
His name, hold on. I'm going to look at him right now.
For sure.
Cause, I was shooting some content with my business partner, Sherm, and we were like literally walking up and asking people if they were DJs. And this guy happened to be one. And then we're like, oh, what are you in town for? And he's like, a fingerboarding content or a conference. His name is, I think it's pronounced Heldo, but it's spelled Geldo, Jeldo.
Oh, for sure. So I'm definitely going to have to tap in with him.
Yeah, for real. So that's really cool. And I love what you just said there about being the only house artist at a non-house festival, because I've been thinking about this from a fan perspective. I commented on this DJ's video because he was like the only house artist at a bass festival and the stage was empty. I'm like, oh, is this the secret to have room to dance, is go see the house artist at the bass shows, And I think that there's like on the flip side for artists, there's a really good opportunity there. If you can find a unique way to brand yourself, your competition becomes a lot less. I mean, there's just less of it if you're going after different types of festivals. So is that like a lane that you've found yourself in more often?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there has been a lot of opportunities that have come up just by being different, where it's like my genre is almost not as relevant, So I feel like staying true to who I am as a skater and as a fingerboarder has definitely led to a lot of opportunities where I might not have found myself there in other cases, because just putting out a lot of skate videos and doing that frequently has allowed me to connect with talent buyers that also like skateboarding. So a lot of the times I'll go play a show in another city and me and the homie who booked me will be out skating at skate spots. And we'll just be like cruising the city, getting skate clips. And if I had not been going hard on the skateboard stuff, then I don't know if we would have ever connected and got that show popping. And in turn, I don't know if I would have met these fans in another city and have made lasting connections with them.
Yeah, that's another great point, because I feel like, this scene, this industry is still not widely understood, this type of music. Like if you say to someone who, listens to top 40 or rock, you'll be like, yeah, I like house music. They'll be like, oh, EDM, Martin Garrix, Diplo. And so it's people, I feel like people go to like shows and festivals to find their tribe. It's just like we all understand what we're here for. We understand this music, but it is a growing genre. And it's interesting that you've been able to connect with people outside of the festival scene. That's kind of like proof positive that you can do that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've had a lot of people come up to me at shows like, yo, I really mess with your brand because you out here like being a comedian house DJ, and like you're not just making music, you're doing all types of different stuff that attract people to your brand, like whether it be the skating, just being a silly goose, or going hard with the fashion line. You know, people that like clothing and style, I feel like I've been able to kind of invite them into my world who might have never tapped into house music, and especially minimal house being more of a boutique niche kind of sound. Just doing this other stuff and building community around other clothing entrepreneurs, other skaters and fingerboarders has definitely introduced people to a world that they may have never stepped in. Because with my shows that I put together, I'll bring a fingerboard ramp and set it up at the merch booth. Like whether it's just a small ramp or if it's a Camp Dappington function, I'll bring the whole skate park. But there's always going to be some element for people to engage with the fingerboarding. And I've for real pulled up to the local fingerboard shop here in LA, and I've just made friends there, like hit the fingerboard park and let them know like, yo, I make music, I put on shows, like, and not only that, but we got the fingerboard skate park. So pull up, come sesh, and get down to some house music if you bout it. And people that would have never put on a minimal tech playlist ever in their life, now they're getting put on to some grooves. And I feel like minimal is a great introduction to the house world because it's easy on the ears. It's like, it's not offensive in any way. It's easy to get down to. So I really like being able to combine worlds and introduce people to what I'm doing through a unique way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point. I think people are I'm noticing the trend in Chicago with amazing event producers that are popping up doing shows in unique spaces. Like there was, of course, just the House Call show in a Portillo's with John Summit, but on a smaller scale, House Calls they're doing shows in helicopter pads and old warehouses. Just cool locations, still accessible from a price point perspective, pop-ups in different restaurants, things like that. And I think as this scene is evolving, people are starting to want more than just to, especially because I think sober culture is starting to get pushed a lot in this scene. And people who like this music are getting older and need something different. They can't go to a club until 2, 3 in the morning, every weekend. And so I think you raise a great point about introducing new folks to the scene and also giving existing fans a different opportunity to engage with the music outside of just going to a club, until 2, 3 in the morning. And I think like there are so many opportunities artists can take advantage of because of that fact. And it doesn't need to cost a fortune, but that begs the question, being an artist in 2024 is very expensive. If you want to travel to gigs outside your hometown, which is a goal for many, marketing materials cost money unless you have the time to do it yourself. So can you walk me through like what is an investment in creating an experience like this? And I guess maybe justify it to the people listening who are still skeptical.
Yo, you make a great point there about the state of being an artist, how expensive it can be. And yeah, it's definitely an investment if you want to do it right, whether with money and time or more realistically both. And yeah, like you're saying, to do the Camp Dappington pop-up at a festival was definitely a big investment on both of those fronts. It for real took me like a month, and I actually worked with my grandpa, who's a carpenter, to help build this unique festival structure. And even though it took a really long time to learn those skills and it took money to get the lumber and get the decorations and the fingerboard ramps and all that stuff, at the end of the day, it was 1,000% worth it, because not only did it bring joy to a lot of people, which is worth it on its own, but now it's got people talking about my brand. And when I did the pop-up, I had my merch there for people to check out. I was doing giveaways for the fingerboard competition. So although it's an upfront investment, the ability to exist in people's mind after the fact is priceless, and people that would have never discovered my music, or at least not in that way. Now they're going home from the festival because they got my merch and they're streaming my Spotify and they're looking out for future merch drops and that type of stuff. So I definitely think that although it's hard to invest up front, you just have to believe in your worth and realize that it's going to pay off down the line for sure.
Yeah, that is such a great point. Brand awareness is a long game, and we are so used to A, online trying to chase viral moments, and B, we have this backwards fucked up thinking that every dollar you invest, it has to lead to a ticket sale, a this, a that. We assign a tangible to it, and it takes putting your brand in someone's mind multiple times for you to remember and then for you to take an action. And so, you're doing something that is, you built a physical structure. It's hard to miss. And I think that is so smart to have a tangible experience, like something where someone can come and physically do. And some of my friends who do similar things, I have a girlfriend here who does something called deep house yoga, and she DJs and she has a dance instructor and a yoga instructor, and it's a silent disco style, but it's like this tangible experience that she brings to festivals, and her brand has blown up because of it. And what you're doing is so similar. And I love what you said about, the upfront investment being 1,000% worth it, because people, not having the means is a separate conversation, but it's like, do you want to do this forever? Then you have to invest in your brand. Like if you want to make this a sustainable career, you have to invest. So I love everything you're doing. And you've mentioned merch a few times. I just had a conversation with a touring manager who said that, his artist merch saved the tour from going into the red. And we talked about how profitable it can be for an artist. So walk me through that decision to make merch and how it benefits you.
Yeah, totally. So there's one book that I read, which I recommend to any up and coming artist. It's called How to Make It in the New Music Business by Ari Herstand. And one of the things that really stood out to me was the fact that he said, if you make merch, then you can turn your shows from going from breaking even, if you're lucky, to being profitable, like you said. So that definitely stuck out to me. And just growing up, I always been a fashion dude, you know what I'm saying? Like I was the vice president of fashion club in school. So that's always been a big part of my identity. So doing merch was just something that came natural to me. And I started doing merch like probably sooner than I should have, or sooner than most people would have. But since style and clothing is such a big part of my identity, that's something I wanted to do. As soon as I dropped my first EP, I wanted to have merch. And, it's kind of scary to invest in making clothing, especially when you have physical product like sitting underneath your bed. Is a little bit of a stressor, it's like, how am I going to move this merch? But at the same time, I feel like that's putting a fire under your ass to really make something happen with that merch. And setting up a booth at shows, like, bro, there's so many times when I played a venue and the talent buyer has told me like, yo, Drew, you're actually the first artist that's ever played here to set up a merch booth. And I'm like, bro, that's crazy to me, because setting up the merch booth is like what saves the tour. Like you said, that's what makes the trip profitable and allows me to keep going and doing these shows. And it's just like a big missed opportunity for a lot of artists, I feel like, because not only are you making some more bread, but the fans are going home with a souvenir. They're going home with something tangible. And now if they're rocking their merch, that's like advertisement for your brand, for your music. And the more that you can make something that's actually stylish and people want to wear and put together a crispy fit with, then the more that you're going to exist in their mind and the more that they're going to put other people onto your brand.
It's so true. I didn't even realize I'm wearing an artist merch right now that I bought. And look at how cool this shirt is.
There we go. Yeah, that shit
Yeah.
crispy, and that's why you're wearing it. Like you got to put some thought into what your pieces look like, and the more crispy it is, the more often people are gonna wear it.
It's so true. And I mean, I've seen a lot of bad merch, right? There's a lot of lazy merch out there, and it's, either from the fact that the shirt is not comfortable or they got the most basic. I do think I'm of the camp that if you're going to make merch, like make it either high quality in design or in fabric or both if you can, make it comfortable. One thing I have to say, and I don't know where you fall on this, I struggle to find women's merch at shows. And that is something, I don't know how you feel about that, but like I have so many boxy t-shirts that I end up just wearing to sleep in because they only sell, men's or unisex size clothing. Where do you fall on that?
Yo, that's a good question. So I feel like a big inspiration to my brand is Drew House, and not just because it got Drew in the title, but I love what they're doing as far as making pieces that's available for everyone to wear, whether you're a boy or a girl or whatever. It's fresh and it fits the body in a way that can be rock with a variety of fits. So when I'm making merch, I try to make it a unisex appeal for everybody. And you make a good point though, because it is a little more expensive to make men's and women's cuts. But I just feel like if you can make something that's fresh for everybody and it complements the body, feels good on your skin, then I think that's the best way to do it if you can.
Yeah, I agree. And you said that you started making merch probably earlier than you should have. Do you think it is a good idea for other artists to start dabbling? I mean, you said that you have, stock sitting under your bed, but it's not like that stock, like it's not like there's a shelf life on it, right?
Yeah, totally. And there's a lot of heads out there that will recommend you to do print on demand. But personally, I don't think that's a good route, because if someone is copying your merch online, then you don't have a chance to put that personal touch on it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you shopping with Dapps Apparel, I try to make sure that when you get that pack, it feels like Christmas Day for real. When you open it up, it's a whole ass experience. And it's like something that's fun, something that's going to want people to shop again, And I really don't think there's ever too early to start if what you have is a quality, fresh ass offering, And like we were saying about the unisex appeal, one way that you can do that is by making accessories, like whether it be hats or jewelry, something crazy, just think outside of the box and think of what would you want to wear? Like what would be fresh for your outfits, And I think that's how you can really go hard on the whole merch offerings. If you just think of something that you want to wear and just go in on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I mean, if you want to make music, sustainable and support you full time, you definitely have to diversify, and it's not easy. It's a long game, but it's worth it. And so I think that you're a great case study in showing that, you don't have to have 1 million followers to do these sorts of experiences, make these sort of items. People will still buy and invest because you're providing them so much value, down to the packaging that you put the shirts in. So what would be your advice for artists listening to this show? If they are, looking ahead to 2025, how should they be moving differently based on what you've learned from trying all these things?
Yeah, for sure. Good question. So I just say look at yourself and just think, like, what makes you different? What's something that you do that nobody else does? What do you do better than everyone else? And just don't be shy about it. I feel like a lot of people, they don't want to expose like their personal interests, or they might be embarrassed about it. Like, when I first started off, like, I was really low key about the fingerboarding because I didn't want people to make fun of me or whatever. But on the real, like, staying true to who I am that's what's really helped me to elevate my brand. So just ask yourself, what makes you different? And how can you incorporate that into the music, Like you said, maybe you like surfing. Why don't you throw some surfing clips on your Spotify canvases or whatever you like? Just incorporate that into your branding and reach out to other people in that community outside of music and introduce them to your stuff and just build connections that way, because there's probably a lot of people out there that would be into your music, but they didn't really have a chance to discover you yet. But if you make those connections and just be your unique, authentic self, then that's when the real magic happens. You got to step out of your comfort zone, because that's when you start making moves for real, for real.
I love it. I love it. So tell me what you have coming up. Is there any Camp Dappington experiences on the horizon? I know we're heading into winter as I'm looking out. It's like 40 degrees outside in Chicago right now, but what do you have coming up?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for asking. So although Camp Dappington started off as a theme camp at festivals, I'm definitely looking into doing more independent events. Just recently, we had our first independent show here in LA, where we booked a venue called Scribble, and we brought out the Fingerboard Skate Park. I booked one of my favorite artists, Groovall, brought a special guest onto the lineup as well. So not only just doing theme camps, but definitely looking to do full-blown concerts as well. And also just doing like special pop-ups where people get a chance to shred the Fingerboard Skate Park, shop the Dapps apparel clothing line, but we're also going to be slapping some minimal deep tech slappers, you already know. So I'm definitely looking to expand the operation beyond just theme camps, but doing our own independent concerts and events as well. So just trying to bring the good vibes to more cities and just trying to spread the love as much as I can.
I love it. This has been really insightful, and I think it'll inspire other artists to, really lean into what makes them unique. It's great advice. It's like always the most basic, simple things that make the most sense and work. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just be yourself.
No,
so
that's real.
Thank you for this. It was so great to finally connect, and I hope I had a few tech decks in 6th and 7th grade because my first boyfriend was a skater. So I'll have to see if my brother has one that I can dabble with again, and hopefully try out Camp Dappington one day.
Yeah, that's what's up. I hope to see you out there. I want to see you in the competition for real.
Okay, I'm gonna have to start practicing now.
Get those kickflips in. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been real. This was a lot of fun.
I hope this episode inspires you to not keep the parts of what makes you separate. Just like Drew skateboarding, if you have something that's so integrated with your life, you can't imagine life without it, well, then that's a good use case for it to be part of your brand. And this is a perfect segue to tease what's happening next week on the pod. I am bringing on my good friend and former Elevated Frequencies social media manager, Sabrina Diamond, to talk about content pillars. Sabrina has worked with VH1, BET. She's been in the music industry for a long time. And if you have no idea about what to post on social media beyond sharing your gigs or track releases, and if you need help getting organized on social media, then this is the episode for you, no doubt. And of course, I can't end today's episode without reminding you about Chicago Music Nexus, because we are literally less than a month away, and I am busier than ever getting this event together. Guys, so many cool things are happening. We're going to have so many fun surprises and activations for you. I can't wait for this to happen. I can't believe it's coming to fruition. I would love to see you all there. I know for a fact I have 3 of my Patreon students flying in for this. It means the world to me. The code podcast gets you $30 off your pass at chicagomusicnexus.com. I can't wait to see you guys there. I'll talk to you next week. Stay elevated.